haven't seen that, you've been living in a cave. The very good Psy artist, he's been working hard, I think what I've heard is for a dozen years to get that kind of fame and glory, and now he's making his circuit throughout the US, so it's been really great to see that. So, happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome to our conversation here about Samsung and the super devices of tomorrow. And so I'm going to start with just asking a question, and then I'm going to come back to your question here about middle part. So just quick show of hands. Before you got out of bed this morning, how many of you picked up a device? Raise your hand. Okay, we're going to come back to you folks in just a moment, okay? By the way, that says something about you, by the way. All right, so, I think Simon said earlier in his discussion yesterday as he launched the Cortex A15 series, is that, no longer are you going to have, these separate companion devices that you have. You effectively, can carry a super device in your pocket. And that super device can do so many things, and depending on what peripherals it can connect to, these types of things, you can do many of those things. And so unfortunately, right, we were talking about Cortex A15 series yesterday, but there's a lot of things that you can be doing today. And so the goal of my discussion is to give you some updates about what Samsung is doing for that. So what I'd like to do is just tell you a little bit about Samsung, because Samsung's a very big company, and I get lots of strange questions. And I have to say, no, that's not me. No, that's not me. So I'll tell you exactly what I do, but in a moment here. But key mobile trends, we'll talk about those. Some of the important technology trends that we see coming and that we're embracing. We'll look a little bit at our roadmap, and then we'll talk more a little bit about what we're doing for the ecosystem and what else we've got going on here at ARM Techcon. So Samsung is a very large conglomerate and company, and we're very focused on striving for excellence to deliver both to our partners and our customers. If you look at this slide, you can kind of see just some data points that I think that we often publish in our annual report. But lots of offices, lots of different areas, from running amusement parks to hospitals, construction companies, building nuclear reactors, all of these types of things. But I'm in the Samsung Electronics part of the company, and more specifically, I work in our System LSI division, which is focused on SoC and related technology. So I'm going to be talking more about that today. But our goal is really, as a company, is really focusing on being a great company. So that means things like paying attention to the environment, sustainability, social awareness, creating technology that really delivers on the core values that Samsung believes in. And if we didn't do that, right, of course, we wouldn't be looked at very, very positively. And so when you run big fabrication facilities, lots of people, this is a big focus for us as a company. When you look and you drill down into kind of our component market leadership, this has been a place where we've been excelling for many years. And you can kind of see, what some of our percentages are there going back from 2009 through 2011. And, some of the interesting, areas there are, of course, our memory business, other businesses that maybe you don't hear about, things like our image sensor business, smart card business, those types of things. But one of the areas I think that's very important to point out there is our mobile AP or SoC business. That's been a place that we've been excelling certainly for the last 3 years, and we're going to continue to do a lot of research, development, and getting into the market very quickly as soon as possible. And what I'm going to do here later is show you some products that we think we're cutting edge and leading in the market that have been released actually within the last week. And so I'll show you what some of those are. And it's focused on some of this leadership that you're seeing here in the mobile AP side. So let's talk a little bit about trends and what kind of mobile trends in particular that are on the horizon that we're paying attention to. So some of this is a little remedial. I apologize to some of you because maybe you've seen some of this data before, especially if you're picking up your device before you get out of bed in the morning. So when you look at just the market for smartphones and tablets, right? All of the data is showing that we're just about ready to hit that kind of billion unit mark in 2014, meaning a billion units shipped of smartphones by 2014 in that annual. If you look at tablets, right? Tablets is a great business as well that's excelling very, very quickly, and I think next year that's going to hit over 150 million units, and that one's taken off exponentially very quickly. And my own personal notion on that is I look at my parents, right? And I used to get them all stuck on notebooks, and they would turn them on, and it would be all complex and everything else. And now that they have tablets and they can use them, I see them using technology a lot more often. And my position on it is I think just tablets make technology that more accessible and ease of use for especially people who are not used to using technology. So in looking at the mobile trends here, so what technology will be required to innovate further in the coming years? Let's think about that for a moment, and I'll talk with you about what some of those pieces are. So this is an interesting slide. Take a look at what this looks like in the X and Y columns there, so years and amount of devices. So in 2008, notebook platforms crossed over the desktop, right? I think all of you were probably in and seen and witnessed this. 2009, smartphone crossed over notebooks. Smartphones then in 2011 crossed over the total PCs, and like I said earlier, 2014 we should get to 1 billion smartphones. So I think one of the interesting things here is the thing that I asked you earlier, which is, you see this point about 36% of all email is open on a mobile device. So even before you look at it anywhere else, I mean, I used to be the guy who used to come into the office and open up my email, and there it would be for the first time of the day, right? And you weren't feeling like you had to respond to everything. Well, another data point off of this is people who are an active Facebook users. 30%, 35% of Facebook users change, update, or read something on their Facebook account before they get out of bed in the morning. That's changing society greatly. So you know more about what's happening probably in a family member or a friend or a relative or whatever happened very, very quickly. It's kind of breaking down communications where you had to maybe wait till the weekend to make a phone call or something. So it's really, really becoming a very big piece or integral component of our lifestyle. So mobile is king. So when you take a look at the tablet market as a piece kind of moving off of the smartphone side, you kind of start to see what the segment is starting to look like here, right? So on the left-hand side, you can start to see that the tablet market is starting to take off, as I said, about 150 million units by next year. But you can kind of see that lower-hand column there, the $200 or less. That seems to be kind of the line where people will say, discretionary money, I'm just going to go get that, right? Maybe they don't think about it as much. And you can kind of see where most of the market leadership is now kind of in that $400 and above line. And there's different things, that's focused on, moving that dimension. And so one data point that I read just this morning before I got out of bed was that the Nexus 7 device, they're shipping now, which is effectively in this price point range, they're shipping 1 million of those a month. So I expect as we move further that percentage line is going to get, or that percentage area is going to get bigger and bigger. So the other thing I think that's key to kind of moving this, and it's actually going to be on the upper end of that bar, is what's happening with displays. And I think from a display perspective, and we'll talk a little bit about this more, is you're starting to see the WXGA type of displays firmly in that $200 or less tablet space. But you're starting to see this WQXGA, so these 300 DPI screens really come into play. And We actually, I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But it's really starting to take off in that kind of middle area, the WXGA. It's starting to disappear. So you either have this or you have this. There's no in between. Consumers can discern that right away. So the display is really going to be something major. Thinness, form factor, but the display is what's going to be a major piece for tablets in the future. So important technology that Samsung is looking at and that we're focused on. I'm going to go through 5 of those areas. But one of the things I think that I'll mention, just because it's important to all of us, I'm sure many of us have friends or loved ones on the East Coast, but I've been tracking that probably like many of you have. And you know that there's like 8 million people without power. They're trying to find fuel and get around and do different things. But a technology bent on that is how important communication has been, both on the personal sense, but also for the emergency systems that are in place over there. But of the 10 states that were devastated the most by Hurricane Sandy, I think one of the interesting points was that 10 of the states lost 25% of their cell tower abilities. Right, so they had some of them still up, so they would have shoddy coverage or whatever. And I think one of the interesting things that came out of that was, how important is communication, and they were trying to get those back up, get fuel back out to these cell towers and fuel them back up. But the end users who are trying to use them, their biggest challenge was battery life. So they were lining up at McDonald's, and some of the McDonald's over there were putting up power strips so that they could charge their smartphones or tablet devices so they could stay communicating with their family, friends, loved ones, and for emergencies. And so we all, I think, have a role to say, hi, how do we improve performance, but at the same time, keep power in check so that we can have that type of thing. But that's just a great technology example of what I think we all need to look at, and certainly it's something that Samsung is doing. So, so when you look at that, let's take a look at what some of these technology areas are. So in this part of it, let's just talk about big, little, and process. 2 very important areas that again, Samsung is looking at. So big, little, right? So the right CPU or the right application processor for the right task. So the demanding areas get the most power when they need it in performance, right? So things like gaming or doing browsing the internet, especially if there's a lot of content. Or when you move over to something that doesn't need as much power, you move that over to a lower powered application processor. And you'll notice, if you're looking at this slide carefully, that we actually have 2 A15s on there. There was a mistake made in the graphic side of that. We actually really mean A7 there, but obviously it runs the A15 code set, as you all know, on the A7. So still somewhat correct. But so how do you do the low power thing? So when you close the notebook or you do something, you've got this always on, always connected. You expect your email to be in your inbox and you can look at it right when you open up your device. These are the types of things that don't need the power of an A15 to run that. So big, little is a great example of where you get the power when you need it, the performance when you need it, and you hopefully can have the battery life that lasts as long as you need it. From a process perspective, Samsung has been investing probably more than anyone else in this area over the past several years. We consider ourselves to be leaders in high-K metal gate. We introduced that, and we believe we were the first to introduce an ARM SoC based on this at the 32 nanometer transition. We are shipping a majority of our volume on the 32 and now 28 nanometer high-K metal gate, and we've also announced that our focus is to get to 14 nanometer as quickly as possible using FinFET. And so I like to call this the 30-30 equation, right? You should get about 30% better power efficiency, but at the same time, the size, you should get 30% smaller as well. And all of these things obviously help us from a power perspective as well. So when you put these 2 pieces together, it should really help us balance out and give a great end user experience. Two other areas, of course, are GPU and multimedia. So we're, providing ways to do a lot of advanced processing at lower power levels. And so when you look across an SoC, of course, it's got now GPU, it's got an ARM7, or Cortex A7, Cortex A15 in there. How do you use the right platform at the right time? And if you kind of look at the GPU here, right, the idea is you've got to look at it from a heterogeneous perspective, right? And so, so one of the things that we're looking at very closely is how do you take that and say, wow, if I'm doing this, can I do this on or in the registers for the GPU instead of firing up the CPU to go do this? The GPU and GPU compute are going to be very, very important, and we actually launched, or will be launching a device on the 13th that takes full advantage of that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. On the other side of this, IP that unfortunately doesn't get a lot of the focus and attention that, say, the GPU and the CPU do, is multimedia and imaging. Equally important, because a lot of people use things like image sensors, cameras, front and back. They're doing video voice conferencing with their family. They're taking photos. They're taking videos, these types of things. And so what you often find is that the ID is at odds with what you want to ship for the device. And so, if you're Z-height, you've only got a limitation of that. You've got to figure out other unique and interesting ways to use this heterogeneous computing platform or specific IP to deliver great things like image stabilization. If you've got low light conditions, how do you do that? And so there's a lot of work happening, not only at Samsung, but in research facilities as well, to focus on this camera 2.0 computational algorithms that are needed to really give the end user a great experience, again, in multimedia and imaging. So you can see some of the other areas there that we've got where we include things like an ISP in our SoC. We include different codecs to run video and imaging. And so these complement a lot of the experiences, again, that we have already with the AP and the GPU. The last technology area I just want to outline is our display support. So I mentioned this before, but it's not only the display support, to support these big, displays like WQXGA, is you need to have the ingredient of a lot of bandwidth. And so you can kind of see the line chart there that says, goes all the way up to WQXGA. You need that 7.8 megabits per second, and then you need some overhead to run some of the applications in there as well. And I can say today that we're the only ones able to ship and support at that level of bandwidth support or memory bandwidth support. And like I said, we'll show you a device here in a moment, but it takes well advantage of this bandwidth that we've embraced in our AP stack. So product roadmap. So Cortex A15, our Exynos 5 dual experience. We talked about what we're doing from a bandwidth perspective, which is the Exynos 4 and Exynos 5 memory bandwidth. But we've also gotten great performance gains by going to the Mali T604 GPU, which is OpenCL compliant. So you can, as an application developer, write, and it can either run on the big core, the small core, or the GPU, depending on what your app requires and the power needs that it has. But we've also, obviously, going from A9 to A15, you can see that you get 40% gains there as well. And so now doing things like high-resolution computing, PC-like gaming, these types of things, really we believe our Exynos 5 dual is the experience. And so I'll talk where you can all get your hands on that and see this later if you'd like at our booth. So, let's bring them up. Yes, great. So I've got some things to show you here, but I'll go through them really quickly. So last week, the Google ARM Chromebook was announced. This is the real first competitive ARM notebook that's out there. So this is a 11.6-inch device, 6 to 7 hours, $249 cloud-based, focused. But basically, you can see the quote there in short. ARM Chromebook is it does a lot more with a lot less, meaning you don't have to pay a lot. And I don't know if you've seen the commercial on this, but they show a kid using it, stepping on it. It's a very durable device. And we think that this is, you wouldn't have expected our first Cortex A15 processor to show up in a notebook-like experience the most, as much as I've been telling you about smartphones and tablets. But this is a really great device, and it has an extremely fast boot up time, as you can tell. It's like 9 seconds to boot up, and we had it cached there. But we'll have this at our booth if you want to take a look at it. The other device that I'm not allowed to show you today is that device called the Google Nexus 10. And basically you can see the point there. A lot of people are recognizing this as a great device. Very thin, dual stereo speakers, 10-inch WQXGA screen, 2560 by 1600. But this also uses our dual Cortex A15 platform. And the most amazing thing is the display. The display is the best in class today at 300 PPI. The other thing is it has the latest release of Android Jelly Bean. So that comes out week after next. The other one, though, I want to show you is just to show you a little bit about what we're doing in the ecosystem. This is a Quanta device. This is basically a developer's platform. And you might think about, well, gosh, why is John showing me this kind of beta-looking thing? What is this? Well, actually, Simon and I were in the back, and we were looking at this and pulling out all of our devices and looking at it. Actually, this is the thinnest tablet in the market today, and this is really only just a device that we've been working on with Quanta to say, hey, how can we get, if somebody's interested, they're really not sure about form factors, what kind of technology, what kind of components they'd want to put in it. This is a great example of where you could take this and run with it and ship, something that's ready to go. I want to thank Quanta for coming and showing this to us, but it's a great example of our technology and their ability to get it into a really thin form factor. So those are some of the new devices, and we'll have 2 of those at our booth. So our roadmap, you can kind of see our heritage going back. I don't know if you can call it heritage going back to 2010, but this industry moves pretty fast. And so, we have a strong track record for delivering, the Exynos ARM SoCs early, as I've just said now with our Cortex A15 dual lineup there. And key technologies that I mentioned earlier, GPU, big, little, other areas are areas that we continue to invest in and invest early. And so, our roadmap is focused on what can we deliver and how fast can we do that. And so when you look at Exynos Next, as you see up there, of course we're going to be looking at a lot of the technology that I mentioned earlier, but we're also going to look at that from a fabrication perspective as well and be at the advanced nodes of fabrication. So meaning things like going from 28 to 14 to FinFET to packaging, wide I/O, TSV. So we're looking at all of these things to provide the best experience that we can to build the best devices. Just a little bit more kind of surrounding the Exynos SoC. You can see other components that we also ship and that we focus on. And one of the things I think that's interesting is that we really look to tune these along with the AP. Right, along with the Exynos application processors. So things like NFC, power management companionship, the image sensor platform along with the ISP that's included in the AP. So we really look at how we can tune these and provide the best possible experience when you're looking at the Samsung components and trying to ship a device. So let me just turn to the last topic here, which is I would say that we've reinvigorated and refocused on what we want to do with the ecosystem. And one of the things that we look at is what can we do with the operating system companies, software solution companies, the hardware companies, and then just generally looking at the end user and saying, hey, what can we do with the Exynos platform to make sure that more people are getting an experience to say, what does it look or what is it like to compute and develop applications on this? And so earlier this week we announced our Arndale Development Board. And this, if you look at what I just showed you in devices, this is a true development board at a very reasonable price that allows you to take the power of what I just showed you and actually develop applications and try out things like GPU compute. Try out things like, how does the graphics platform really work on there? What is the power? What is the JavaScript performance on this platform? So this really is in the first development board where you can truly take a Cortex A15 platform and go tinker on it, do whatever you want. It fully supports our OpenCL profile and a broad range of peripherals that you see on there as well. So it is really a complete development platform. And when you look at it now on our overall community boards, you can see that we have 2 platforms supporting our quad-core Cortex A9 and now this Arndale board. And so we really feel like we've got the right platforms to deliver for what our development community wants to do based on our platforms. So just a couple of pointers here. So what are we doing at ARM Techcon? Well, we've actually got 3 really great technical drill downs onto the 3 areas that I talked about as major technology areas that Samsung is investing in. The first one there is GPU compute on Exynos. So Seth Bernson will be talking about that and giving a lot more detail. Heterogeneous big little computing, what is our plans, what are we thinking, why is that important to us? Will Kang from our SoC development team will be talking about that a little bit later today. And then Akshay Ardewal will talk about the focus that we've, the bigger renewed focus that we've got on our developer community. And he'll go through actually the Arndale board in a lot more detail. The other thing is, if you want to experience the Chromebook device, the other devices that we have, including development boards, you can see those at our exhibit, along with a lot of other pieces. So with that, I'd like to say, Samsung is a company that's delivering the Exynos platform, but more importantly, they're delivering it in concert with a lot of our other silicon that's important as well, and the end solutions that are important to developers and end users alike. We want to continue doing that certainly for the years ahead. So thank you. I appreciate your attention. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, John. So that concludes the morning session. The rest of the day is just starting. We have many classroom sessions, many workshops. We have a panel later on security. And we have a Halloween party later on tonight, sponsored by SCI and Marvell. And John told me he's going to come dressed as the game dude. So look out for that. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for attending TechCon.